Hello, we're here with Public Education Officer Barry Brickey with the Kingsport Fire Department. And Barry, thank you for talking with us today.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and you're going to talk a little bit today about...
We're going to talk about a little bit about fire safety that has to do with our more experienced friends. And we've done some sessions here at the Senior Center, but with the COVID going on, we can't do that right now. So we've been missing doing that, and we decided we're going to come in today and talk a little bit about some issues fire safety wise that has to do with all of our friends out there who may not be able to come by and meet with us. And so, we always like to talk about, first of all, any type of fire issue that could be in the house. The number one cause of fires here in the United States is from cooking. And so it's always very important that if you're cooking, that you always watch what you're cooking. A lot of times somebody may put something on the stove and they'll turn it on and then they'll go and do something else and be like, oh no, I forgot something, or they don't remember until they hear the smoke alarm going off. And that happens a lot around town. We get a lot of calls for that. And so anytime you're cooking, stay with it. And there's a saying from the National Fire Protection Association, which is watch what you heat. And so, watch that pot, watch whatever you're frying. And then when you're thinking about it there at the kitchen, when you're at the stove, look around it, make sure there's nothing flammable within 3 feet of it. Maybe paper towels, a dish towel, something like that. I've got a long sleeve jacket on. I wouldn't want to cook in this. I want to have my sleeves pulled up. That way they're not, getting close to the eye of the stove. And that is some of your first steps. Now, if you were to have a fire in the kitchen, most of those fires are going to be on the stove top or inside the oven. If it's inside the oven, don't ever open it. Just leave that oven door shut, reach up on the control panel, turn the oven off. And then you can call 911, say, hey, my oven is on fire, I've turned it off, and that will respond and help get the smoke out of your house. Now, if you were to have it on the stove top in a pot or a pan, make sure you always have a lid that fits whatever you're cooking. If you're going to be boiling something, frying something, make sure you have that lid that fits it. That way, if you were to have a fire, your lid is your best fire extinguisher, because what you can do, you can take that lid, slide it right across on top of it, reach back, turn off the heat. Now, a lot of times you might be in a hurry, you're going to be cooking something, you're like, well, you know what? I think if I turn this on high, it's going to cook faster. And a lot of people do that. But what happens is the eye of the stove is about 1200 degrees when you're cooking it on high, which is way past the combustion point of almost anything that you're going to have inside the kitchen that you're going to be preparing. And so cooking on a lower temperature, it may take a few more minutes, but you're going to run a lower risk of having a fire. Now, speaking of being in the kitchen, we have people who say, well, do I need a smoke alarm in my kitchen? Well, if you have a smoke alarm in your kitchen, you probably know that smoke alarm very well, because if that one's inside the kitchen, it's going to go off a lot. You open the oven, it goes off. You're cooking something on the stove, it goes off. You're making toast in the toaster, it goes off. The best place to have that smoke alarm is just outside of your kitchen, maybe in the dining area or in the living room coming from the kitchen. And that way you will get an actual real response instead of those false alarms. Because a lot of times if you have a false alarm, someone's going to reach up and they might take the battery out of the smoke alarm. That happens. And so we want to make sure that it's always working and working well. And so, that's just a little bit about kitchen fires. Now, we also have some other types of fires that we address sometimes. It's kind of chilly out. It has been for a couple of months. And so our heat is on. One of the things that you always need to remember is having that space around any type of heating unit, whether it's a fireplace, whether it's a space heater or something like that. Make sure you have a 3-foot area where there's nothing combustible. That includes your sock feet and your gown or your pajamas or anything, or even pieces of your furniture, and it should also include your pets. Don't let them get close to it, because that fur can catch on fire too, and so we don't want them to get hurt either. Now, when you do have a heater, make sure it's the type that is a cool touch. When you touch the outside, it doesn't burn you, and also that it has a tip switch inside. If you were to come through and accidentally bump it and it turns over, it should go off. That's the kind you need, because if you accidentally bump it and you didn't know it and the heat is on, you could catch your floor, your carpet, a rug, or something like that on fire. Now, speaking of those heaters, always make sure that the wires that go into it, the plug, is working well. And whenever you plug it in, make sure that outlet is in good shape. I recently had a incident with an outlet of mine where we had something plugged into it, and I didn't know that the inside was loose a little bit, and we actually had a small fire inside the electrical box in the wall at that outlet. Now, thankfully, it went out. I was home when it happened, and so we were able to get that taken care of. But always make sure that you don't overload an outlet. If you've got things plugged in, if you're going to use something, make sure put it into a power strip, because that way if it pulls too much power, it's going to kick it off maybe even before your breaker will. Also, make sure that if you're plugging something into a wall, that it's not behind something. We actually had a fire here in Kingsport where a lady had her 2 pets in the house, and they loved to follow her around the house, but when she left, they would run, jump up on the couch, and look out the window. And so then what would happen is that over time, that couch got pushed back a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. She left one morning to go, excuse me, to get some groceries. She came back and she found us at her house where there was a house fire. What had happened? One of her little dogs had run up, and every time he jumped on that couch, it kept pushing on that plug in that electrical outlet, bending the cord. And so finally, it gave out, the cord did. It got hot and it caught fire. So always look for those things. And then also around inside your living room, we also talk a lot about falls, making sure that there's nothing there to trip you, making sure you have good sturdy shoes on. You know, I see a lot of people running around in flip-flops or sandals, even in the wintertime. And so make sure you got good shoes on. That way you have a good solid place under your feet as you're walking around. Watch out for your pets, watch out for electrical cords, make sure they're not out where you walk on them or under a rug. And speaking of rugs, you know, they have those rugs that you put down and they call them throw rugs. You know why they call them throw rugs? Because they throw you. And so make sure they have a good back on them. That way it's a kind of it's not really a sticky back, but it gives some friction to it to keep it from sliding. You know, if it doesn't have a back on it, put down something underneath it. You can actually buy the little pieces of anti-slip stuff to go under there and stick underneath a rug if it's something you really love, and that way it won't move on you. Now, all throughout your house, make sure you do have those working smoke alarms. Every smoke alarm should be tested every month. Walk through, mash that button. Hopefully they're interconnected. If they're interconnected, when you mash one, they all go off. If they're not, then you need to go check every single one. Also, at least once a year, if it has batteries in it that need to be changed, change those out. And then, after 10 years, a smoke alarm needs to be replaced. So, if you don't know how old they are, you can reach up, give it a little twist, and pull it down, and look at it, and on the back of it, it has a date. If that date is over 10 years, you need to replace it. And I will tell you, if it's not a white color, if it looks kind of yellowish, then it's really old, and you need to replace it. I've actually seen a few of those here recently, and so there's still a few of those out there in some of our homes, and we need brand new ones. If you live here inside the city of Kingsport, and you're a homeowner, and you say, hey, you know what? I haven't checked my smoke alarms in a while, and I've had these here since I moved in, and they probably need to be replaced. You can give us a call at the fire department at 423-229-9440, and we can come out and check those smoke alarms for you, and maybe able to even put some up for you if you really need them.